Today, we're digging into one of the most unsettling and just persistent mysteries in recent memory, the disappearance of Lauren Spierer, a college student who vanished in the time it takes to, well, walk down the street. We're talking about a single minute.
On the night she went missing, Lauren sent this text message. It's just two simple words, but they became this haunting centerpiece of a decade-long investigation, raising questions that, to this day, still have no answers.
And really, this boils the whole case down to its most basic, chilling elements. You've got a young student at Indiana University, a walk home that should have taken less than a minute, and then nothing. No clues, no crime scene, and absolutely no closure.
So, to even begin to understand what might have happened to her, investigators had to meticulously piece together every single moment of her last known night. So let's start there. Let's reconstruct that timeline. The evening started out pretty normal. A typical night for a college student, moving between bars in a busy town. But as the night went on, one thing became really clear. Lauren was becoming more and more intoxicated. By 2 a.m., she'd actually lost her shoes. And then at 4:30 a.m., she was seen on camera for the very last time, walking by herself.
Now, you might think that's a small detail, but investigators saw this as incredibly significant. To them, walking barefoot wasn't just a random fact. It was a clear signal of just how vulnerable she was, suggesting she really wasn't fully aware of her surroundings anymore.
And this brings us to the most critical part of the entire case. The real mystery isn't just about the hours leading up to her disappearance. It's about the incredibly short, final window of time in which she completely vanished. 60 seconds. That's it. That's the estimated time it should have taken her to walk from where she was last seen to the safety of her apartment door. We're talking a distance that's less than a single city block.
And this is the question that has absolutely haunted her family and law enforcement for over a decade. In a place she knew, literally steps from her own home, what could possibly happen in just 60 seconds that leaves no trace behind, absolutely none?
So here's the crucial contradiction that stumped everyone. There's security footage of her walking toward her building, but there's zero footage of her ever going inside. Police dogs were able to track her scent, but then the trail just stopped. Cold, right in the middle of the street. And that immediately made investigators think a car had to be involved.
Okay, so this brings us to the first major theory that police had to consider. Given the circumstances, the most straightforward explanation seemed to be that this wasn't some kind of planned abduction, but a completely spontaneous act.
A crime of opportunity is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It doesn't need a complicated motive or some elaborate plan. All it requires is the right victim in the right place at the wrong time. An offender sees a moment of vulnerability and just decides to act.
So if you look at this, the theory makes a lot of sense. Lauren was alone, she was clearly impaired, and it was almost 5 in the morning. She was, tragically, an easy target. But the questions on the other side are just as powerful. How could an abduction happen on a city street, even a quiet one, without a single person hearing or seeing anything? And if there was no struggle, how could there be zero physical evidence left behind?
All those unanswered questions lead us to the second big possibility that investigators had to seriously look into. What if the person responsible wasn't a stranger at all? What if it was someone Lauren actually knew and trusted? So this theory really hinges on trust. I mean, a stranger trying to get someone into a car would likely cause a scene, right? But a familiar face, someone offering a ride home or offering to walk you the rest of the way, that would be met with way less suspicion, especially from someone in her vulnerable state. And this theory is compelling because it really could explain the lack of witnesses and why there wasn't a struggle. An offer of help from a friend? That's plausible. But the questions that are left are huge. After police interviewed every single person she saw that night, they couldn't find a motive for anyone in her circle. And if somebody knows something, why have they stayed quiet for all this time?
So, with both of the main theories essentially hitting a brick wall, the investigation slowly shifted from an active search to a long, incredibly frustrating, cold case. Let's take a look at why it stayed unsolved for all these years.
The challenges here are just immense. Without a body or a crime scene, there's no physical evidence to analyze. Witness memories from that night were, as you can imagine, hazy and often contradicted each other. And her digital life, it just stopped. Her phone, her bank cards, everything just went silent at that exact moment, leaving no trail for anyone to follow. And of course, this is the devastating human side of any unresolved case. For her parents, every day that passes doesn't bring them any closer to peace. It just deepens the mystery and the pain of not knowing. They're forced to live in this awful space between grief and hope, which is just an imaginable burden to carry.
Ultimately, it all comes back to that simple, chilling fact. Some mysteries begin with these elaborate plans or dark secrets. This one began with a college student walking less than 100 yards to her front door. What happened in that one missing minute is a question that, to this day,